I knew the exact moment my heart stopped beating. It was the way the little boy lined up 3 toy cars on the marble table, perfectly parallel, his small fingers trembling as he adjusted them with precision that felt sacred. The way he rocked gently in his seat when the kitchen door slammed. The way his storm gray eyes refused to meet anyone's gaze, instead finding safety in the repetitive motion of rolling one tiny wheel back and forth, back and forth. I dropped the water pitcher. It shattered across the floor of the restaurant, ice and glass exploding around my feet, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Because for one impossible second I was looking at my son again. You know what they say about grief, right? That time heals all wounds? That's a lie people tell you when they don't know what else to say. The truth is that grief doesn't heal. It just becomes part of your bones, your blood, the rhythm of your breath. You learn to carry it the way you carry your own skeleton. Invisible to everyone else but holding you up all the same. My name is Elena Russo, and this is the story of how I went from a broken woman who kept her dead son's shoes by the door, just in case heaven had visiting hours, to the wife of the most dangerous man on the Amalfi Coast. The story of how one act of kindness toward a mocked little boy gave me back everything I thought I'd buried forever. But before we get there, before I tell you about the night I married Adrian Moretti in a centuries-old chapel while half the criminal underworld watched, before I explain how I became a mother again to the most beautiful soul I've ever known, I need you to understand something. I need you to understand what it feels like to lose everything. Hey, how are you doing today? Wherever you are, whatever you're going through, I hope you're somewhere warm. I hope someone who loves you is nearby. Because this story, the one I'm about to tell you, it's not an easy one. But I promise you, if you stick with me until the end, you'll see why some people believe in miracles. You'll see why I do now, even though I spent 2 years praying to a God I was sure had forgotten my name. If you've ever lost someone, if you've ever had your faith shattered, if you've ever wondered whether your heart could survive being broken twice, then this story is for you. And if you end up feeling even a fraction of what I felt, do me a favor. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you believe broken people can be put back together. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this, stories about real people surviving impossible things. But let me start from the beginning. I was 32 years old when my son died. Joshua was 7. He had my dark curls and his father's green eyes, though his father had left us when Joshua was 2, the day after the autism diagnosis. Some men aren't built for the long fight. Some men hear the word different and they run. But I didn't run. I learned everything. I read every book, joined every support group, found every therapy. I learned that when Joshua lined up his toy cars, he wasn't being obsessive. He was creating order in a world that felt like chaos to his beautiful, brilliant brain. I learned that his meltdowns weren't tantrums. They were the only way he could release the overwhelming flood of sensory input that the rest of us filter out without thinking. I learned to love him in the language he understood. Quiet voices, predictable routines, tight hugs that provided deep pressure. The same lullaby every night, the one my grandmother taught me, about the moon watching over sailors lost at sea. I learned that different didn't mean broken. And then when I finally had it all figured out, when Joshua was making progress and starting to use more words and could finally tell me he loved me in his own way, God decided that wasn't the lesson I needed to learn after all. Leukemia. Stage 4. 6 months from diagnosis to the funeral. The doctors said he didn't suffer much at the end. They said I should be grateful it was peaceful. As if there's any peaceful way to watch your child disappear piece by piece. As if there's any mercy in holding his hand while his grip gets weaker every day until finally, his fingers go still in yours and you realize you're holding on to nothing but a memory. I kept working at the seaside restaurant because I had to eat, had to pay rent on an apartment that still smelled like him. His drawing still covered the refrigerator. His little shoes, the blue ones with the dinosaurs, still sat by the door. I couldn't move them. What if he came back and couldn't find them? That's where grief takes you. To the irrational places. To the midnight hours where you're sitting on the bathroom floor, holding his favorite stuffed whale, bargaining with the universe. Take 10 years off my life. Take 20. Just give me one more day with him. One more hour. One more chance to sing that lullaby. The other servers at the restaurant stopped trying to make me smile after the first year. They stopped inviting me out after shifts. I became a ghost who took orders and delivered food and collected tips with the mechanical efficiency of someone who had forgotten how to be human. I hadn't laughed in 2 years. I hadn't felt anything in 2 years except the constant dull ache of living in a world that had the audacity to keep spinning after my son left it. And then, on a Thursday evening in late September, Adrian Moretti walked into the restaurant. I'd heard of him, of course. Everyone on the coast had heard of him. The Moretti family controlled everything from Naples to Salerno. Shipping, construction, half the politicians, and if rumors were true, a network of operations that made sure nothing moved through southern Italy without their approval. But I'd never seen him in person. The whole restaurant went silent when he entered. Our manager, Paolo, practically tripped over himself rushing to greet him. The other servers straightened their aprons and checked their hair. Even the kitchen staff peered through the window to catch a glimpse. He was younger than I expected. Mid-30s maybe, with dark hair that fell back from his face in a way that looked natural but probably cost more than my monthly rent to maintain. He wore a black suit that fit him like it had been designed specifically for his body, which it probably had been. But it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Dark, almost black, the kind of eyes that looked at you and saw everything you were trying to hide. He wasn't alone. 2 men in matching dark suits flanked him. Bodyguards, obviously. They scanned the room with professional paranoia. Hands near their waists where I could see the outline of weapons. But between them, holding tight to Adrian's hand, was a little boy. He was small for what I guessed was maybe 8 years old, with the same dark hair as his father but eyes that were lighter, gray like storm clouds. He wore a miniature version of his father's suit, perfectly tailored, but he clutched a small red toy car in his free hand. And he wouldn't look at anyone. Paolo seated them at the best table, the one by the window overlooking the water. He snapped his fingers at me, the universal restaurant signal for get over here and don't mess this up. I picked up my notepad and walked over, my heart still doing that thing where it forgot to beat regularly. Because the closer I got, the more I saw. The boy Matteo, I would learn later, was lining up sugar packets on the table with intense focus. 1, 2, 3, perfectly straight. When one of the bodyguards shifted and accidentally bumped the table, the packets moved slightly out of alignment and Matteo's whole body went rigid. Adrian noticed immediately. He put a gentle hand on his son's shoulder and carefully straightened the packets again. His dangerous Mafia boss hand suddenly impossibly tender. "It's okay," he murmured to the boy. "See? All fixed." Matteo didn't respond. He just started rocking very slightly in his chair. And that's when I heard it. One of the other servers, Marco, whispering to his friend near the kitchen. "That's the boss's kid. The broken one. Imagine being that powerful and your only son is a freak who can't even talk right." The friend snickered. "Bet he wishes he could send that one back, get a refund." Something cold and sharp twisted in my chest. I knew that laugh. I'd heard it before, in waiting rooms and grocery stores and every public place I'd ever taken Joshua. The laugh of people who thought different meant less than. Who thought a child who experienced the world differently was somehow a source of shame. I approached the table and Adrian looked up at me. His expression was controlled, neutral, the face of a man who had learned never to show weakness. But there was something in his eyes. Exhaustion maybe. Or resignation. The look of someone who'd fought too many battles and lost the ones that mattered most. "Good evening," I said quietly, keeping my voice soft and even. "Can I get you something to drink?" "Red wine," one of the bodyguards ordered. "The Barolo." "Water for him," Adrian said, gesturing to Matteo. "No ice. Room temperature. In a glass, not plastic." Specific requests. I knew what that meant. Sensory preferences. Joshua had been the same way. Ice water hurt his teeth. Certain textures made him gag. "Of course," I said. I started to turn away when the restaurant door swung open behind me, slamming against the wall with a bang that echoed through the space. Matteo flinched so hard he knocked over the sugar packets. They scattered across the table, the careful order destroyed. And then he started screaming. Not crying. Screaming. a high-pitched sound of pure distress that came from somewhere deep in his chest, the sound of a child whose entire system had just been overloaded beyond what he could process. The restaurant froze. Everyone stared. Adrian was already moving, trying to calm him, but Matteo was gone now, lost in the meltdown, his hands over his ears, his whole body shaking. The bodyguards looked panicked. Our manager looked horrified. The other diners looked annoyed. And Marco, that piece of garbage server, actually rolled his eyes and muttered, "Great, the freak is having a fit." I didn't think. I just moved. I dropped to my knees beside Matteo's chair. Not in front of him where he'd have to see me. Not touching him because I knew better. Just beside him, at his level, in his peripheral vision where I wouldn't be a threat. And I started humming. The lullaby. The one I'd sung to Joshua every single night for 7 years. The one about the moon watching over lost sailors, guiding them home through the darkness. My voice was quiet, barely audible over Matteo's screams, but I kept going. The same melody, over and over, the muscle memory of motherhood taking over before my brain could catch up and remind me that I had no right to this anymore. That I'd lost my chance to comfort a child like this. Matteo's screaming started to quiet. Not all at once. Gradually, like a wave pulling back from shore. The screams became sobs, the sobs became whimpers, and then finally silence except for his ragged breathing. He still had his hands over his ears. Still rocked in his chair. But he'd stopped spiraling. I kept humming for another minute. Then slowly, carefully, I stood up and backed away, giving him space. When I finally looked up, Adrian was staring at me. Not like the other people in the restaurant, who were watching with curiosity or pity or disgust. He was staring at me like I just performed actual magic. Like I'd done something impossible. "How did you?" He started, his voice rough. "The sugar packets," I said quietly, already moving to gather them from where they'd scattered. "May I?" He nodded, still looking stunned. I collected all the packets and set them in front of Matteo, not arranged, just in a small pile. Giving him the choice. Giving him back control. After a moment, Matteo's hands came down from his ears. He looked at the packets. And slowly, with those same precise movements, he began lining them up again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect order restored. I caught Adrian's eyes. Room temperature water. "I'll be right back." When I returned with their drinks, my hands were shaking so badly I almost spilled the wine. Because the adrenaline was wearing off and the reality was crashing in. I'd just seen my son again. Not literally. I wasn't losing my mind, not completely. But Matteo moved like Joshua. Responded like Joshua. Needed the same things Joshua had needed. And for those few minutes, kneeling beside him, humming that lullaby, I'd felt like a mother again instead of a ghost wearing a mother's skin. "Thank you," Adrian said when I set down his wine. His voice was different now. Softer. The dangerous edge temporarily filed down. I've never seen anyone outside family calm him that fast. "It was nothing," I lied. "It wasn't nothing." He held my gaze. "What's your name?" "Elena. Elena." He repeated it like he was memorizing it. "I'm Adrian. This is Matteo." At the sound of his name, Matteo looked up. Not at me, not exactly, but in my direction. His gray eyes flickered across my face for just a second before returning to his sugar packets. But that second was enough. I saw Joshua in those eyes. Saw the intelligence people always missed because they were too busy judging the things that made him different. Saw the sensitivity, the way he experienced everything at a volume the rest of us couldn't comprehend. "Hi, Matteo," I said softly. "Those are very straight lines. You're good at that." He didn't respond. But his rocking slowed just a little. I took their food order, brought their meals, checked on them the way I'd check on any table. Except I wasn't treating them like any table. I was careful to approach slowly, to keep my voice quiet, to warn Matteo before I set down plates so the sudden appearance wouldn't startle him. And Adrian noticed everything. When they finished eating, he left a tip that was 3 times the cost of the meal. But before he left, he stopped beside me. "We'll be back," he said. It wasn't a question. They came back the next week. Same day, Thursday evening. Same table by the window. This time Matteo brought 3 toy cars instead of 1. He lined them up on the table before Adrian had even fully sat down. Red, blue, green. Perfect spacing. "Hi, Matteo," I said when I approached. "I like your cars. Are they fast?" He didn't answer, but he picked up the red one and rolled it exactly 2 inches forward, then back. Forward, then back. "That one's his favorite," Adrian offered. "He's had it since he was 4. I nodded. Joshua had a blue whale. He took it everywhere. Even to. I stopped myself. He loved it. Adrian's expression shifted. "Joshua. My son." The words came out before I could stop them. "He passed away 2 years ago. He was 7. I don't know why I told him. I never talked about Joshua at work. Never mentioned him to customers. But something about the way Adrian looked at Matteo, with that mixture of fierce love and bone-deep exhaustion, made me think he'd understand. "I'm sorry," Adrian said, and he meant it. I could tell the difference between real sympathy and the empty condolences people offered, because they didn't know what else to say. "He was autistic too," I continued, still not sure why I was sharing this. "He used to line up his cars just like that. Always in the same order. Blue, red, yellow, green. If anyone moved them, he'd have to start over." Matteo's hand stilled on his car. He was listening. "It gave him comfort," I said, speaking to Adrian but really talking to Matteo. When the world got too loud or too bright or too much, he could look at his cars and know that at least that one thing made sense. That was smart. A lot of people didn't understand how smart that was. Adrian's jaw tightened. "No, they don't understand much." I caught the edge in his voice and glanced around the restaurant. Marco was watching us from across the room, his expression sour. Paolo was hovering nearby, clearly anxious about whatever conversation was happening at the Moretti table. "Your manager is nervous," Adrian observed, following my gaze. "Does he think I'm going to shoot someone over the risotto?" "The risotto is pretty bad," I said without thinking. Adrian actually smiled. Just a small one, barely a shift in his expression but real. "Then what do you recommend?" "Honestly, the kitchen here is hit or miss. But the view is free and consistent." "Elena," Paolo hissed from behind the bar, gesturing frantically for me to stop whatever I was doing. Adrian's smile disappeared. "Is he always like that with you?" "He's stressed. Important customer and all." I kept my voice light. "Does he pay you enough to tolerate it?" The question caught me off guard. "He pays me enough to make rent." That's not what I asked. I didn't have an answer for that. So I just shrugged and changed the subject. "Can I get you started with something to drink?" We fell into a routine after that. Every Thursday evening, Adrian and Matteo would come in. Always my section. Always the same table. And every week Matteo responded to me a little bit more. The 3rd week he made eye contact with me for 3 full seconds. The 4th week, when I hummed his calming song while clearing their plates, he hummed 2 notes back. The 5th week he said his first word to me. "Blue." I'd been setting down his water, and my shirt that day was blue. He pointed at it and said very clearly, "Blue." I thought I might break right there in the middle of the restaurant, because Joshua's first word to me had been blue too. His favorite color. The color of his beloved whale. "Yes," I managed. "Blue. That's right. Good job, Matteo." He went back to his cars immediately, but I saw Adrian's eyes glistening. "He doesn't talk much," Adrian said quietly. "To anyone. His therapist sometimes. Me rarely. But he's talking to you." "He's brilliant," I said. "He just communicates differently." That's what everyone says. But they don't actually believe it. Adrian's voice went hard. They see him and they see something wrong. Something to fix or hide or mock. I thought of Marco and his snide comments. Of the way other diners would stare at Matteo when he rocked in his chair or made small sounds to self-soothe. Of Paolo constantly worrying about whether Matteo's presence would disturb the other customers. "I know," I said. "I saw it with Joshua too. People are afraid of what they don't understand. And you're not afraid. Of Matteo? No. Never. I looked at the little boy, at the way he arranged his cars with such care and purpose. I'm only afraid I'll do something wrong, that I'll overwhelm him or misread what he needs. You won't, Adrian said with certainty. You see him. Really see him. Do you know how rare that is? I did know, because I'd spent 5 years looking for people who would see Joshua that way. Teachers, therapists, family members. Most people looked at my son and saw a list of deficits, things he couldn't do, ways he didn't measure up. Only a few had looked at him and seen possibilities. Can I ask you something? Adrian said after their meal, when Matteo was occupied with his cars. Sure. Would you be willing to spend time with Matteo? Outside the restaurant, I mean. Pay you, of course. More than you make here. But he responds to you in a way he doesn't respond to anyone else, and I think you could help him. Every rational part of my brain screamed no. Getting attached to this child would destroy me. I'd already lost one son. I couldn't let myself care about another one, couldn't risk that pain again. But I looked at Matteo, at his gray eyes focused so intently on making sure his cars were perfectly aligned, and I heard myself say, yes. Adrian's shoulders dropped like I just lifted a weight he'd been carrying for years. Thank you. Truly. But not for money, I added. I'll help because I want to. Because he deserves someone who understands. Elena, I can't ask you to do this for free. You're not asking. I'm offering. Something shifted in his expression then. A wall coming down, maybe. Or a door opening. Then let me take you to dinner at least. You and Matteo and me. Somewhere better than this. I almost said no. Almost protected myself from this, from the danger of letting these two people into my life. But then Matteo looked up at me and smiled. Just a tiny lift at the corner of his mouth, but a real smile. And I was lost. We started meeting twice a week. Adrian would pick me up after my shifts and we'd go somewhere quiet. A park usually where Matteo could run without people staring. Or the beach early in the morning before the crowds arrived. I taught Adrian things I'd learned with Joshua. How to prepare Matteo for transitions by counting down from 5. How to recognize the early signs of sensory overload before it became a full meltdown. How to follow Matteo's lead instead of forcing him to follow ours. And slowly Matteo started to bloom. He began using more words. Short sentences. Car is red. Water please. Elena sing. That last one broke me and healed me at the same time. Adrian started asking about Joshua. Not in a prying way, but genuine curiosity about who my son had been. So I told him. About Joshua's obsession with ocean animals. About how he'd memorized every species of whale by age 5. About the way he'd hug me so tight it almost hurt, because he needed that deep pressure to feel grounded. He sounds incredible, Adrian said one evening while we watched Matteo chase waves at the water's edge. He was. I wrapped my arms around myself. I still can't believe he's really gone. Sometimes I wake up and forget just for a second. I think I need to get him ready for school. And then I remember. You never stop being his mother, Adrian said quietly. Death doesn't end that. I looked at him surprised. Matteo's mother died when he was 3, he explained. Cancer. And even though she's gone, she's still his mother. I still talk to him about her. Show him pictures. She existed. She mattered. Death doesn't erase that. I'm sorry, I said. I didn't know. How could you? I don't exactly talk about personal things. He gave a dry laugh. Hazard of my profession. Trust no one, reveal nothing. Assume everyone wants something. Do you think I want something? He looked at me for a long moment. No. That's what terrifies me about you. I terrify you? You see through all the things I used to keep people at a distance. The money, the power, the reputation. You look at me and you just see Matteo's father. A man who doesn't know how to help his son, but is desperate to figure it out. That's not a weakness, I said. That's love. In my world, they're the same thing. I was starting to understand what he meant. Because I'd noticed things. The way Adrian never went anywhere without bodyguards. The way he constantly scanned every room assessing threats. The way people either cowered from him or tried too hard to please him with no middle ground. And I'd noticed the way people reacted to Matteo. Not just strangers but people in Adrian's world. The bodyguards who looked uncomfortable when Matteo stymied or made noise. The business associates who'd stop by our table and greet Adrian warmly but ignore Matteo completely, as if the boy was invisible. The worst was Adrian's father. He showed up at the restaurant one Thursday walking in like he owned the place. Maybe he did. Antonio Moretti was in his 60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, dressed in an expensive suit that probably cost more than my car. He approached Adrian's table without invitation and looked at Matteo with barely concealed disdain. Still bringing him to public places? Antonio said to Adrian, not bothering to lower his voice. You know how it looks. Adrian's entire body went rigid. He's my son. He has every right to be here. He's an embarrassment to the family name. Antonio's eyes were cold. You should have sent him to that facility I recommended. Let professionals deal with him. He's not being sent anywhere. Adrian's voice was deadly quiet. The voice I imagined he used right before someone disappeared. Antonio finally looked at me. And who's this? The babysitter. A friend, Adrian said. A friend. Antonio's laugh was cruel. Be careful, son. People will use your weakness against you. This boy makes you vulnerable. And now a waitress? You're losing focus. Get out, Adrian said. Excuse me. You heard me. Get out. And don't come back unless you can treat my son with respect. Antonio's face went red. For a moment I thought he might actually strike Adrian. But then he noticed the bodyguards shifting closer. Their loyalty clearly with Adrian, not him. You're making a mistake, Antonio hissed. Both of them will destroy everything we've built. He left and the whole restaurant seemed to exhale. Matteo was rocking hard now, hands over his ears. The confrontation had been too much. I immediately knelt beside him and started humming. Adrian put a hand on his son's shoulder, and together we brought him back from the edge. But when Matteo finally calmed down, I saw something in Adrian's eyes I hadn't seen before. Fear. He's right, you know, Adrian said quietly. Being close to me puts a target on your back. On Matteo's back. I have enemies who would use anyone I care about to hurt me. Then we'll be careful, I said. Elena, you don't understand. My world is dangerous. People die. They disappear. If someone thought hurting you would give them leverage over me. Are you saying you care about me? The question hung between us. Adrian looked away. I'm saying you should walk away now while you still can. But I didn't walk away. I couldn't. Because somewhere between teaching Matteo to cope with loud noises and watching Adrian learn to communicate in his son's language, something had shifted in me. I wasn't just a ghost anymore. I was remembering how to be human. 3 months after that first night, Adrian kissed me. We were at his house, a beautiful villa overlooking the coast that was somehow both luxurious and warm. Matteo had fallen asleep on the couch between us during a movie, and we'd carefully moved him to his bedroom. When we came back downstairs, Adrian poured us wine and we stood on the terrace, looking out at the dark water. I can't give you a normal life, he said. I can't promise safety or simplicity or any of the things you deserve. I don't want normal, I said. Normal is the life I had before Joshua died. And I can't go back there. What do you want? This. I gestured to the house, to where Matteo slept peacefully upstairs. This feeling. Like maybe I'm allowed to be happy again. Adrian turned to face me fully. You make me believe things could be different. That maybe Matteo and I don't have to navigate this alone. You don't, I said. He reached up and touched my face, his hand gentle despite the calluses and scars that told stories of violence. I'm going to kiss you now. If you don't want that, tell me to stop. I didn't tell him to stop. His kiss was soft, questioning, giving me every chance to pull away. But I leaned into it instead, into him, into the possibility that broken people could find each other and build something whole. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I haven't felt this way since Mateo's mother, he whispered. I didn't think I could again. Me either, I admitted. And for a few perfect weeks I let myself believe it could last. I should have known better. Because the universe had already taught me that happiness was temporary. That the things you love most will be taken from you. That hope is just another word for something waiting to be destroyed. The first sign of trouble came from the restaurant. Paolo pulled me aside after a shift, his expression nervous. Elena, you need to be careful. People are talking. About what? About you and Adrian Moretti. About how you've been spending time with him and his son. Some very dangerous people have noticed. I'm just helping with Mateo. It doesn't look like just helping. Paolo wrung his hands. Look, I don't want trouble here. The Moretti family is important, but they also have enemies. If those enemies think you matter to Adrian. Are you firing me? No. I'm warning you. Be smart about this. But I wasn't smart. I was falling in love. With Mateo, who now greeted me with hugs and full sentences and had started calling me Lena, because Elena was too many syllables. And with Adrian, who looked at me like I was the answer to prayers he'd stopped praying. The second sign came from Adrian's world. I was at the villa with Mateo when two men in suits arrived for a meeting with Adrian. I stayed in the living room with Mateo, playing with his cars, but I could hear raised voices from Adrian's office. You're distracted, one of the men said. This waitress, she's making you soft. My personal life is none of your concern, Adrian replied, his voice hard. It is when it affects business. We have operations that require your full attention. Instead, you're playing house with some woman and your son. There was a crash like furniture being overturned. Say one more word about my family. Adrian's voice was pure threat now. Go ahead. See what happens. The men left quickly after that. When Adrian came back to the living room, his knuckles were bleeding. Adrian, I started. Not now, he said. Then softer. Please. Not now. I bandaged his hand while Mateo watched, his gray eyes worried. Daddy okay? Mateo asked quietly. Yes, buddy, Adrian said, forcing a smile. Daddy's okay. But he wasn't okay. And neither was I. Because I was starting to realize what Antonio had meant. What Paolo had meant. What everyone had been trying to tell me. Loving Adrian and Mateo made me a liability. A weakness. A target. And in Adrian's world, targets didn't survive very long. The third sign came from the last place I expected. Marco, the server who'd mocked Mateo that first night, approached me after a shift. You think you're special, don't you? He sneered. Think you've hit the jackpot. Poor little waitress catches a mafia boss. Leave me alone, Marco. People are placing bets on how long before he gets bored of you. Or before his enemies get to you first. He leaned closer. My money's on 3 months. That's generous, considering you're just a replacement mommy for his freak kid. I slapped him. I'd never hit anyone in my life, but my hand connected with his face before I could think about it. Marco's expression went dark. You're going to regret that. Is there a problem here? Adrian's voice cut through the tension like a blade. I hadn't heard him arrive. But there he was, standing in the restaurant entrance with his bodyguards, his eyes locked on Marco with predatory focus. Marco went pale. No, sir. No problem. Good. Adrian walked over and put a protective hand on my back. Because if I hear that you've spoken to Elena disrespectfully again, I'll have a problem. And you don't want me to have a problem with you. Marco practically ran to the kitchen. But as Adrian led me outside, I felt the stares of everyone in the restaurant. Felt the weight of their judgment, their fear, their fascination. This was what my life would be now. Always under scrutiny. Always watched. Always one wrong move away from danger. I'm sorry, Adrian said when we were in his car. I shouldn't have threatened him like that. But when I walked in and saw him in your face. It's fine, I said, even though it wasn't. It's not fine. This is exactly what I was afraid of. People using you to get to me. Marco is just a jerk. He's not dangerous. Adrian looked at me, and I saw real fear in his eyes. Everyone is dangerous in my world, Elena. Everyone has a price or a grudge or an angle. I can protect you, but only if you let me. Protect me how? Move in with us. You and Matteo are already attached. And if you're at the villa, my security can keep you safe. Adrian, I can't just move in with you. We've only been together for a few months. I know it's fast, but nothing about this has been normal. And I need to know you're safe. I wanted to say yes. Wanted to let him take care of everything, keep me and Matteo in our safe little bubble. But something in my gut twisted with warning. Because I'd learned the hard way that nothing good lasts. That the tighter you hold on to happiness, the more it hurts when it's ripped away. And sooner or later this was going to hurt. I just didn't know how much. I moved in 3 weeks later. Not because Adrian pressured me, though he clearly wanted me there. Not because I was running from anything, though my tiny apartment had become suffocating with its shrine to a dead child. I moved in because Matteo asked me to. We were at the beach, the three of us, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of orange and pink. Matteo was building a sandcastle, carefully packing sand into a bucket with the same precision he used for everything. Lena, he said, not looking up from his work, why you leave every night? I glanced at Adrian, who suddenly found the horizon fascinating. Because I have my own home, sweetheart, I explained gently. Remember? My apartment in the city. But this is home. He looked up at me then, those gray eyes so earnest it made my chest ache. Daddy's home. My home. Why not your home? How do you explain adult complications to a child who sees the world in beautiful, simple truth? I would like it to be my home, I said carefully. But that's a big decision. Daddy wants you here. I want you here. He went back to his sandcastle. So you should be here. Later that night, after Matteo was asleep, Adrian and I sat on the terrace with wine neither of us was really drinking. I didn't put him up to that, Adrian said. I know how it looked, but I swear. I know. And I did. Matteo didn't operate in manipulation or hidden agendas. He simply stated facts as he understood them. But he's right. I do want you here. Adrian turned to face me. I want to wake up with you. I want Matteo to have you there when he needs you, not just during scheduled visits. I want this to be real, Elena. All of it. It is real. Then why are you still holding back? The question hit harder than I expected. Because he was right. I was holding back. Keeping one foot out the door, maintaining my escape route. I'm scared, I admitted. Of losing this. Of losing him. Of losing you. You think keeping your apartment is going to make it hurt less if something happens? Adrian's voice was gentle but honest. You're already in this, Elena. You're already Matteo's person. You're already mine. The only question is whether you're going to let yourself be happy about it. I thought about my apartment. About Joshua's shoes still by the door. About the bedroom I hadn't changed in 2 years because changing it meant accepting he was never coming back. If I do this, I said slowly, if I move in, I need to do something first. Anything. I need to pack up Joshua's things. Donate his clothes, his toys. Not throw them away, but let someone else love them the way he did. My voice cracked. I need to stop living in a museum to my grief. Adrian took my hand. We can do it together. You don't have to face that alone. And I need to quit the restaurant. You don't have to quit. I know the work means something to you. It means a paycheck and a reason to get out of bed. That's not the same as meaning something. I squeezed his hand. Besides, Paolo's right. Having me there puts the restaurant at risk. Your enemies could target it to get to you. Adrian's jaw tightened. I hate that this is your reality now. That you have to think about things like that. It's our reality. If I'm going to be part of this family, I need to understand what that means. It means security, protection, but also scrutiny. My business associates will want to know who you are, what your intentions are. My father will be a problem. And yes, there are people who might see you as a way to hurt me. Can you live with that risk? I asked. Knowing that loving me makes you vulnerable? Elena, I'm already vulnerable. Matteo made sure of that the day he was born. One more person to love doesn't increase the danger. It just increases what I'm fighting for. I kissed him then, tasting wine and salt air impossibility. Okay, I whispered against his lips. Let's do this. The next day, Adrian came with me to my apartment. We spent hours carefully packing Joshua's belongings. His clothes went to a children's hospital. His toys to an autism support center. His books to the library. I kept a few things. His favorite stuffed whale. A drawing he'd made of our family. Stick figures holding hands under a blue crayon sun. The blanket I'd wrapped him in as a baby. When we got to his shoes, the little blue ones with dinosaurs, I broke down completely. Adrian held me on the floor of my son's empty bedroom while I sobbed into his chest. He didn't tell me it would be okay. Didn't offer empty platitudes. He just held me and let me grieve. He was so loved, Adrian said when I finally quieted. Look at everything you did for him, everything you remember. That love doesn't disappear just because he's gone. I feel like I'm betraying him. Moving on, being happy. Loving Matteo. You're not replacing him. Matteo isn't Joshua 2.0. He's his own person, and loving him doesn't diminish what you felt for your son. How do you know? Because I loved Matteo's mother. Completely. And she died, and I thought I'd never feel that way again. Then you walked into our lives, and I realized love isn't a finite resource. It doesn't run out. You don't love one person less because you love another person too. I looked at him through my tears. When did you get so wise? Therapy. Lots and lots of therapy. He smiled sadly. After Maria died, I was a disaster. Angry, lost, convinced I'd failed her and Matteo. My father told me to man up and move on. But a friend, one of the few real ones I have, made me see a grief counselor. Changed my life. Does Matteo see someone? 3 times a week. A behavioral therapist, an occupational therapist, and a speech therapist. It's helped him tremendously. But he still needed something they couldn't give him. What's that? Someone who sees him as perfect exactly as he is. Not as a collection of deficits to fix or skills to improve. Just as Matteo. Adrian touched my face. You give him that. The same way you probably gave it to Joshua. We finished packing as the sun set. I took one last look at the apartment that had been my prison for 2 years, then locked the door behind me. I didn't look back. Moving into the villa was like entering a different world. Adrian's home was beautiful but lived in. Matteo's drawings covered the refrigerator. Toy cars lined the windowsills in careful rows. The kitchen actually got used, unlike the showroom kitchens I'd imagined wealthy people owned. Adrian's staff was small. A housekeeper named Rosa who came 3 times a week. A cook named Giovanni who prepared meals but didn't live on site. And the security team that rotated in 12-hour shifts, always 2 men on duty. They're not here to watch you, Adrian explained when he saw me eyeing the guards. They're here to watch for threats. Has there ever been a threat? To the house, I mean. Twice. Once when Matteo was a baby. A rival family tried to send a message by attempting to breach the property. My security stopped them before they got close. His expression darkened. The second time was 3 years ago. Someone left a dead rat on the doorstep with a note threatening Matteo. My blood went cold. What did you do? What I had to do. The threat was eliminated. He said it casually, but I heard the steel underneath. This was the other side of Adrian. The dangerous side. The side that made men like Marco go pale. You killed them. I protected my son. I'd do it again without hesitation. He looked at me directly. Does that scare you? It should have. A normal person would have been terrified. But I just thought about someone threatening Matteo, about that sweet boy being targeted, and I understood. No, I said. It doesn't scare me. Something shifted in Adrian's eyes. Respect maybe. Or recognition that I truly understood what I was signing up for. I quit the restaurant the next day. Paolo actually looked relieved, though he tried to hide it. Marco smirked when he heard, like I'd proven something he'd suspected all along. I didn't care. I was done with that part of my life. The first week at the villa was an adjustment. I was used to working double shifts, running on coffee and survival instinct. Now I had time, space, the luxury of waking up slowly instead of to an alarm screaming at me to get moving. Matteo adapted faster than I did. He started knocking on my bedroom door every morning at 7, waiting for me to make breakfast with him. We developed our own routine. He'd line up the ingredients in the order we'd use them. I'd let him crack the eggs, even though half the shell ended up in the bowl. We'd sing the lullaby together while the food cooked. Adrian would come down in the middle of this, usually on a phone call about business I didn't understand, and he'd stop mid-sentence just to watch us. Like he couldn't quite believe we were real. "You're staring," I told him one morning while flipping pancakes. "Can you blame me?" He ended his call and pocketed the phone. 6 months ago, Matteo barely spoke. He had meltdowns every day. He wouldn't let anyone except me and his therapist touch him. Now look at him. I looked. Matteo was carefully pouring syrup on his pancakes in a spiral pattern, completely focused and content. "He's happy," Adrian continued. "For the first time since his mother died, my son is actually happy. You did that. We did that. You're the one who learned his language. I just helped translate. Don't downplay what you've done." Adrian came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "You gave us both our lives back." I leaned into him, letting myself have this moment. This happiness. This family I'd never expected to find. That night, Adrian took me to meet his inner circle. The meeting was at a restaurant he owned, closed to the public for the evening. 7 men sat around a large table, all of them watching me with varying degrees of suspicion as I entered. "Gentlemen," Adrian said, his hand firm on my back, "this is Elena. She'll be living with me and Matteo from now on. I expect you to treat her with the same respect you show me." "Bold move," one of them said. He was older, maybe 50, with gray streaking his dark hair. "Bringing an outsider into your home, into your son's life. Elena is not an outsider anymore. She's family." Another man, younger and sharp-eyed, leaned forward. "No offense, but we don't know anything about her. Where she comes from, what her connections are, whether she has debts or enemies or motives." "I've had her thoroughly vetted," Adrian replied coolly. "She's exactly who she appears to be. A woman who lost her son and found a way to keep living." The older man's expression softened slightly. "My condolences for your loss." "Thank you," I managed. "But grief can make people do desperate things," the younger one pressed. "How do we know she's not after your money, or planning to use Matteo to secure her position?" I felt Adrian tense beside me, about to unleash hell on this man. But I put a hand on his arm. "You don't know," I said calmly. "You have no reason to trust me. I'm some waitress who walked into your world 3 months ago. If I were you, I'd be suspicious too." That seemed to catch them off guard. "But I'm not going anywhere," I continued. "So you have 2 choices. You can waste energy investigating me, looking for angles that don't exist. Or you can accept that Adrian trusts me, and maybe consider that a man as smart as him wouldn't be fooled by someone with bad intentions." The older man actually smiled. "She's got spine." "I like that." "She's got more than spine," Adrian said. "She's got Matteo's heart. And mine. So I'll ask one more time. Are we clear on how she's to be treated?" One by one the men nodded. But I caught the look the younger one gave me as we left. Not quite acceptance. More like a promise that he'd be watching, waiting for me to prove his suspicions right. "That went well," I said dryly when we were in the car. "Marco is always suspicious. It's what makes him good at his job." Adrian squeezed my hand. "But he'll come around. They all will. And if they don't, then they'll learn to keep their opinions to themselves." We drove in silence for a moment before I asked the question that had been nagging at me. "What exactly is your business, Adrian? I know it's not all legal, But I don't actually know what you do. He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then he sighed. Import, export. Shipping. Some of it's legitimate. Some of it exists in gray areas. We move things that people need but can't get through official channels. He glanced at me. I've never dealt in drugs or human trafficking. Those are lines I won't cross. But yes, I've broken laws. Yes, I've hurt people who threaten my family or my business. Yes, my money comes from activities that could land me in prison if the wrong prosecutor decided to make an example of me. Okay, I said. Okay, that's it. What do you want me to say? I knew who you were before I moved in. I'm not naive enough to think a man with your reputation and security made his fortune through completely legal means. Most people would have questions, moral objections. I'm not most people. And after watching my son die while I couldn't do anything to save him, my moral compass got a little skewed. I looked at him. You protect Mateo. You're helping me heal. You make me feel alive again. That matters more to me than whatever gray area business you run. Adrian pulled the car over abruptly and kissed me hard. Desperate. Like I'd just given him something he'd been searching for his whole life. I love you, he said when we broke apart. I know it's fast. I know we're supposed to wait longer before saying it, but I love you. My heart stuttered. Adrian. You don't have to say it back. I just needed you to know. But I did say it back. Because it was true. I love you too. We stayed parked on that dark road, holding each other, believing for just a moment that love could be enough. That night I officially moved my things into Adrian's bedroom. Rosa had already cleared space in the closet, hung my few dresses next to Adrian's expensive suits. It should have felt presumptuous, but instead it felt right. I was unpacking my small box of Joshua's keepsakes when Mateo appeared in the doorway. Can't sleep, buddy? I asked. He shook his head and came into the room, drawn to the stuffed blue whale I just pulled out of the box. That's Joshua's, I explained gently. My son. He loved whales. Joshua died, Mateo said matter-of-factly. He'd heard us talk about it enough to understand the basic facts. Yes. He got very sick and died. Mateo touched the whale carefully. You're sad. Sometimes. But I'm also happy now. Because I have you and your daddy. He considered this with the serious intensity he brought to everything. Then he picked up the whale and held it out to me. You keep it here. So Joshua knows where you are. The simple logic of it broke something open in my chest. I pulled Mateo into a hug and he let me, even squeezed back with that tight pressure he was learning meant comfort. Thank you, I whispered into his hair. That's very kind. Adrian appeared in the doorway, watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Bedtime, Mateo, he said softly. Elena will still be here in the morning. Promise? Mateo asked me. Promise. After Adrian tucked him in, we lay in bed together in the dark. He's getting attached, Adrian said. Really attached. Is that bad? It's terrifying. If something happens to you, if you decide this life isn't what you want, if my enemies. He trailed off. It would destroy him, Elena. More than Maria's death did, because he was so young then. Now he knows what he's losing. Nothing's going to happen to me. You can't promise that. He was right. I couldn't. But I said it anyway. I promise. 3 weeks into living together, we fell into a rhythm that felt like it had always existed. Mornings with Mateo. Afternoons when Adrian worked from home and I read or helped Mateo with the exercises his therapists assigned. Evenings as a family, cooking dinner together, watching movies, being normal. Except we weren't normal. Normal families didn't have armed guards. Normal families didn't have business associates who looked at you like they were calculating your street value. Normal families didn't have fathers who disappeared some nights and came back with blood on their knuckles and shadows in their eyes. But it was our normal. And I was learning to accept it. Until the night everything changed. We were hosting a dinner party. Nothing huge, just a few of Adrian's trusted associates and their wives. A chance for them to see me in a social context to prove I could handle this world. I wore a dress Adrian had bought me, simple but elegant. Rosa had helped with my hair. I felt like I was playing dress up, pretending to be someone who belonged in this life. The dinner was going well. I made conversation, asked polite questions, laughed at appropriate moments. Adrian's hand kept finding mine under the table, a reassurance that I was doing fine. Matteo was upstairs with one of the security guards, content to play with his cars and avoid the noise of the party. Everything was perfect. And then Antonio Moretti arrived. He walked in without knocking, without invitation, flanked by two of his own security. The room went silent. "Father," Adrian said, standing slowly, "this is a private dinner. For your associates." Antonio's eyes swept the room. "I'm still part of this family, aren't I? Or have you erased me along with everything else I built?" The tension was immediate and suffocating. "You're welcome to join us," Adrian said carefully. "But I won't tolerate disrespect toward anyone at this table." Antonio's gaze landed on me. "The waitress is still here. How domesticated you've become, son. Her name is Elena. And she's not a guest. She lives here." "So I heard." Antonio took a seat without waiting to be offered one. "The whole coast is talking about it. Adrian Moretti, the feared boss, playing house with a nobody. Letting her mother his defective son." Adrian moved so fast I barely saw it. One moment he was seated, the next he had his father by the throat, lifting him partially out of his chair. "I warned you." Adrian's voice was deadly quiet. "I told you what would happen if you disrespected my son again." The bodyguards moved, but Adrian's men were faster, weapons drawn. A silent standoff in the middle of the dining room. "Adrian, stop," I said, standing. "He's not worth it." "Listen to your whore," Antonio choked out. "At least she has some sense." Adrian's fist connected with his father's face before I could say another word. Blood sprayed across the white tablecloth. "Get him out," Adrian ordered his men. "Now. And make it clear to everyone that Antonio Moretti is no longer welcome in any property I control." "You're making a mistake," Antonio spat as they dragged him toward the door. "That woman and that broken boy are making you weak. Your enemies see it. They're circling. And when they strike, don't come crying to me for help." The door slammed behind him. The dinner party ended quickly after that. Apologetic goodbyes, promises to reschedule. Within 30 minutes, the house was empty except for us and the security team. Adrian stood on the terrace, knuckles bleeding again, staring out at the dark water. I approached carefully. "Are you okay?" "I just assaulted my father in front of my closest associates. Officially cut ties with him. Created a power vacuum that will have consequences." He laughed bitterly. "So no, I'm not okay. He called your son defective. What were you supposed to do? Handle it better. Be smarter. Not let emotion override strategy." He turned to me. "But when he said that about Matteo, when he looked at you that way, I couldn't think. I just reacted. Because you love us. Because I love you. Both of you. More than power or strategy or the empire my father built." He pulled me close. "And that terrifies me, Elena. Because love is the most dangerous vulnerability a man like me can have." Upstairs, through the window, I could see Matteo's bedroom light still on. He was probably lining up cars, finding comfort in order and routine, unaware that his grandfather had just called him broken. "We'll figure it out," I said. "Together." But as Adrian held me on that terrace, with the guards watching the perimeter and the ghost of Antonio's threats hanging in the air, I felt it. The shift. The change. The sense that we just crossed the line we couldn't uncross. I'd irrevocably committed to this family, this life, this dangerous, beautiful, complicated love. And there was no going back now. I moved into the villa 3 weeks later. Not because Adrian convinced me. Not because I wanted his protection or his money or any of the things people probably assumed. I moved in because of Matteo. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. I'd taken Matteo to the park like we did every week. Adrian had a meeting, so it was just the two of us, sitting on a bench while Matteo arranged sticks he'd collected into patterns on the ground. He was humming. Not my lullaby, but something else. A song from a cartoon he liked. And he was happy. Really genuinely happy in a way that made my chest ache with something between joy and grief. That's when the woman approached. She was elegant, mid-40s maybe, wearing clothes that screamed old money. She stopped a few feet away and stared at Matteo with the kind of look I'd learned to recognize. Not curiosity. Not concern. Disgust. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with false politeness. "Is that child bothering you?" I looked up confused. "What? That boy? Making those noises? Rocking like that? It's disturbing the other children." She gestured to the playground where a few kids were playing, completely unbothered by Matteo's existence. My blood went cold. "He's not bothering anyone. He's just playing." "Playing?" She laughed, sharp and cruel. "Is that what we're calling it now? My grandson goes to a very good school. They don't tolerate that sort of behavior. Perhaps his parents should consider proper discipline." "Perhaps you should mind your own business," I said, keeping my voice level even as rage burned through my veins. "I'm simply saying that in public spaces we have certain standards. If he can't behave appropriately, maybe he shouldn't be here." Matteo had stopped humming. He was rocking harder now, his hands starting to flap at his sides. He could feel the tension, the hostility radiating from this woman. I stood up, positioning myself between her and Matteo. "He has every right to be here. And there's nothing wrong with the way he behaves. He's autistic. He's stimmying. And if you have a problem with that, then you're the one who shouldn't be here." Her face flushed red. "How dare you speak to me that way? Do you know who I am?" "I don't care who you are. My husband sits on the city council. One phone call and I can have this park monitored for undesirable elements." "Undesirable elements." I repeated the words slowly, letting them hang in the air between us. "You're talking about an 8-year-old child. I'm talking about maintaining standards." Something in me snapped. Not violently but completely. Like a rope that had been fraying for 2 years finally breaking clean. "You want to know about standards?" I said, my voice shaking. "Let me tell you about my standards. My son was like Matteo. He was brilliant and kind, and he saw the world in ways your perfect grandson never will. And people like you made his life hell. Every park, every store, every public space, there was always someone like you. Someone who thought their comfort mattered more than his existence." "I don't have to listen to this," she said, but she didn't move. "My son died 2 years ago. Leukemia. And you know what I regret most? All the times I let people like you make me feel ashamed of him. All the times I left places early because I was worried about disturbing others. All the times I apologized for him just existing." I was crying now, but I didn't care. "I won't do that again. Not for Matteo. Not for any child who deserves to exist in this world, without people like you making them feel broken." The woman opened her mouth, closed it, then turned and walked away quickly, like my grief might be contagious. I immediately dropped to my knees beside Matteo. He was still rocking, hands over his ears now, overwhelmed by the confrontation. "It's okay," I whispered, starting to hum his calming song. "You're safe. You're perfect. You don't have to change anything." It took 15 minutes to bring him back. 15 minutes of humming and quiet reassurance and just being present while his nervous system reset. When he finally calmed down, he looked at me with those storm gray eyes and said, "Lena, protect me." It wasn't a question. It was a statement of fact. And I realized with absolute clarity that I would die before I let anyone hurt this child the way the world had hurt Joshua. That evening I told Adrian I'd move in. He didn't ask why I'd changed my mind. Maybe he saw it on my face. Maybe his security had already told him about the incident at the park. Or maybe he just understood that some decisions don't need explanations. "I'll have your things moved tomorrow," he said simply. "I don't have many things." "Then it'll be a short move." He was right. My entire life fit into 6 boxes. Clothes, books, Joshua's drawings that I couldn't leave behind. His blue whale that still sat on my nightstand. The apartment I'd lived in for 7 years emptied out in a single afternoon, leaving nothing but echoes and memories. The villa was beautiful. More than beautiful. It was the kind of place I'd never imagined living. High ceilings, marble floors, artwork that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. A bedroom suite bigger than my entire old apartment, with a balcony overlooking the water. But what mattered was Mateo's face when Adrian told him I was staying. Forever? He asked, the word careful, testing. For as long as everyone wants me here, I said. Forever, Mateo repeated with certainty, then went back to his cars. Adrian showed me around that first night. The kitchen where a private chef prepared meals. The library with more books than I could read in a lifetime. The security room where monitors showed every angle of the property. There are cameras everywhere, he explained. Motion sensors on the perimeter. Armed guards rotating shifts. No one gets in or out without my knowledge. Is all this really necessary? His expression darkened. You have no idea how many people want to hurt me, Elena. And now that you're here, they'll want to hurt you too. To get to me through you. That's a comforting thought. I'm not trying to comfort you. I'm trying to keep you alive. The weight of that statement settled over me like a physical thing. Are you sure about this? I asked, moving me in here, making me part of your life. Is it worth the risk? Adrian looked at me for a long moment. Mateo hasn't had a nightmare in 3 weeks. He's using full sentences. He asked me yesterday if you were his new mommy. His voice cracked slightly on that last word. So yes, it's worth every risk. That night I couldn't sleep. I stood on my balcony, looking out at the dark water, thinking about how fast my life had changed. 3 months ago I was a ghost. Now I was living in a mansion with a mafia boss and his son, playing house while armed men patrolled the grounds. Joshua would have loved it here. The pool, the garden, the view of the ocean. He'd always wanted to live near the water. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo album I could never bring myself to delete. Joshua at age 5, grinning at the camera with his blue whale. Joshua at 6, concentrating hard as he lined up his toy cars. Joshua at 7, the last photo I'd taken. His face thin from treatment but his eyes still bright with trust that I'd fix everything. I couldn't save you, I thought. But maybe I can save Mateo from a different kind of hurt. From a world that doesn't understand him. Can't sleep. I turned to find Adrian standing in the doorway of my room. He was in dark pants and a white shirt, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. Just thinking, I said. He walked onto the balcony, keeping a respectful distance. About whether you made a mistake? About whether you did. Not possible. He leaned against the railing. You're the best thing that's happened to us in years. You barely know me. I know you sing to my son when he's scared. I know you stood up to my father. I know you don't want anything from me except to help Mateo be happy. He turned to face me fully. In my world, that's more than knowing someone. That's understanding them. Your world sounds lonely. It is. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his touch gentle. Or it was. The kiss was different this time. Not questioning or careful but certain. Like we'd both made irrevocable decisions, and this was just acknowledging what we already knew. When we pulled apart, he said, I should go. Let you sleep. You could stay. Elena. I'm not asking for promises or labels or anything complicated. I'm just saying you don't have to be alone tonight. Neither of us does. He searched my face for a long moment, then nodded. We didn't have sex that night. We just lay together in my bed, his arms around me, both of us holding on like the other might disappear if we let go. And for the first time in 2 years I fell asleep without crying. The next few weeks were almost normal. Or what passed for normal in our strange little world. I quit my job at the restaurant. Paolo wasn't surprised. Marco looked disappointed that he'd lost his favorite target. I didn't tell them where I was living. Just that I'd found a better opportunity. My days developed a routine. Mornings with Mateo, working on his speech therapy exercises and occupational therapy activities. afternoons in the garden or at the beach, giving him time to play and explore. Evenings with Adrian when he wasn't working, the three of us eating dinner together like an actual family. I was good at pretending we were normal. Good at ignoring the bodyguards that followed us everywhere. Good at not asking what Adrian did during his long meetings, or where he went when he left in the middle of the night. But I wasn't good at ignoring the looks from Adrian's associates when they saw me. They'd visit the villa for business meetings. These hard-faced men in expensive suits who spoke in careful code and watched me like I was a bomb that might detonate. Their wives were worse. Polished women dripping with jewelry who'd smile coldly and ask pointed questions about where I came from, how I'd met Adrian, whether I understood the responsibilities of being with a man like him. The message was clear. I was an outsider. I didn't belong. The worst was a woman named Gabriella. She was beautiful in that calculated way, every hair perfect, every outfit designed to intimidate. She'd apparently been pursuing Adrian for years, seeing herself as the appropriate match for a Moretti. She showed up at the villa one afternoon uninvited, walking past security like she owned the place. I was in the garden with Matteo when she found us. "So you're the waitress," she said, looking me over with barely concealed disdain. I can see the appeal. Very nurturing. Very maternal. Adrian always did have a weakness for women who could connect with his son. "Can I help you with something?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral even as Matteo moved closer to me, sensing threat. "I'm here to see Adrian. We have business to discuss." She glanced at Matteo dismissively. "Is he always like this? Following you around?" "He's 8. Children need attention. Special children need special facilities. It's selfish to keep him at home when he could be getting professional care." The familiar rage sparked in my chest. "He gets excellent care here. And he's not being sent anywhere. That's not your decision to make, is it?" Her smile was razor sharp. "You're temporary. A phase. Adrian will realize eventually that he needs someone from his world. Someone who understands the life. Someone who won't be a liability when things get dangerous." "Lena, not temporary," Matteo said suddenly, his voice louder than usual. "Lena stays forever." Gabriella laughed. "How sweet. The broken child has opinions." I stood up, putting myself between her and Matteo. "You need to leave. Now." "Or what? You'll tell Adrian?" "Please do. I'd love to watch him try to explain why he's chosen a common waitress over someone who could actually help his family business." "The lady needs to leave," one of the bodyguards said, appearing from seemingly nowhere. His hand was near his weapon, his expression hard. Gabriella's confidence faltered slightly. "I'm here to see Adrian. Mr. Moretti isn't taking visitors. You need to go." She shot me one last poisonous look. "This isn't over. You don't belong here and everyone knows it. It's only a matter of time before Adrian sees it too." After she left, I held Matteo close, feeling him trembling against me. "Lena stays?" he asked quietly, the earlier confidence gone. Just a scared little boy who'd lost his mother and was terrified of losing someone else. "I stay," I promised, even as doubt crept into my heart. That night, I told Adrian about Gabriella's visit. His expression went cold. "She came here. Your security sent her away. She shouldn't have gotten past the gate." He pulled out his phone and made a call, his voice sharp with authority. "I want to know how Gabriella Romano got onto my property today. I want the security logs and I want whoever cleared her visit fired. Am I clear?" He hung up and ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I'm sorry," he said. "She's been a problem for years. Her family and mine have business ties, so I've tolerated her interference. But coming here saying things to you and Matteo, that crosses a line. She said I'm temporary. That I don't belong in your world. She's wrong." "Is she?" I met his eyes. "Because sometimes I feel like I'm playing pretend. Like I'm a nanny who got upgraded to something I don't understand. Everyone looks at me and sees someone who doesn't fit." Adrian crossed the room and took my hands. "You fit with me. You fit with Matteo. That's all that matters." What about the rest of it? Your business, your family, all the things I don't understand and probably don't want to know about. You don't need to understand my business. You just need to be here with us, making this house feel like a home instead of a fortress. And when your enemies figure out I'm here, when they decide I'm worth using against you, his grip tightened on my hands, then I'll destroy them. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it was terrifying, because it reminded me that the man I was falling in love with was capable of terrible things. That his gentleness with Matteo and me was the exception, not the rule. I don't want you to destroy anyone, I said quietly. I just want Matteo to be safe, to grow up in a world where people don't mock him or try to send him away. He will be. I promise you that. But promises, I'd learned, were just wishes dressed up in certainty. And wishes didn't stop bad things from happening. 2 days later, everything changed again. I was making breakfast when Adrian came downstairs, his face grim. He had his phone in one hand, and I could see from his expression that whatever news he'd received was bad. What's wrong? I asked. I need to go to Rome. There's a situation that requires my immediate attention. How long will you be gone? A few days. Maybe a week. He hesitated. I don't want to leave you and Matteo here alone. We won't be alone. There are security guards everywhere. It's not the same. He set his phone down and pulled me close. I've made enemies in Rome. Powerful ones. If they found out about you, if they thought hurting you would hurt me, then we'll be careful, I said, cutting him off before he could spiral. We'll stay on the property. We won't take risks. It'll be fine. Promise me something. What? If anything feels wrong, even slightly off, you call me immediately. You don't wait, you don't try to handle it yourself. You call me. I promise. He kissed me hard, desperately, like he was trying to memorize the feel of it. I'll be back as soon as I can, he said against my lips. We'll be here. Matteo didn't take the news well. He'd gotten used to having both of us there. His small world ordered and predictable. The idea of Adrian leaving disrupted everything. Daddy, stay, he kept saying, rocking in his chair. Daddy, stay home. Daddy has to work, Adrian explained patiently, kneeling to Matteo's level. But I'll call you every day. And Lena will be here. Lena stay forever? Adrian looked at me when he answered. Yes. Lena stays forever. After Adrian left, the villa felt different. Bigger. Quieter. The security was still there. Cameras still monitoring every corner. But without Adrian's presence, it all felt hollow. Matteo was clingy that first day, following me from room to room, needing constant reassurance that I wasn't leaving too. I'm right here, I kept telling him. I'm not going anywhere. We spent the afternoon in the pool, Matteo splashing and laughing, slowly relaxing into the routine. By evening, he was back to his normal self, lining up his cars before bed, letting me sing his lullaby. Love you, Lena, he said as I tucked him in. My heart cracked open. I love you too, sweetheart. Like Daddy loves you? The question caught me off guard. What? Daddy loves Lena. I see. He smiled, that rare beautiful smile. Lena is new mommy. Tears burned in my eyes. If that's what you want me to be. Yes. No hesitation. Just certainty. You're my mommy now. I kissed his forehead and turned off the light, closing his door quietly behind me. Then I went to my room and cried. For Joshua, who should have been here. For the family I'd lost and the family I was building. For the terrifying joy of being called mommy again. Adrian called that night like he'd promised. How is he? Were his first words. He's okay. Clingy today, but okay. He called me mommy. Silence on the other end. Then, how do you feel about that? Terrified. Happy. Grateful. All of it at once. That's how I feel about you, Adrian said quietly. All of it at once. When are you coming home? Soon. I'm handling things as quickly as I can. But Elena, there's something you need to know. My stomach dropped. What? The situation here is more complicated than I thought. There are people who aren't happy about certain decisions I've made. They're threatening retaliation. What kind of retaliation? The kind that targets families. He paused. I've doubled security at the villa. No one gets in or out without my explicit approval. I need you to stay inside until I get back. Adrian, you're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. These aren't people who make empty threats. We talked for another hour about nothing and everything, until his voice was the only thing tethering me to calm. After we hung up, I checked on Mateo one more time. He was sleeping peacefully, his toy cars lined up on the nightstand beside him. I stood in his doorway watching him breathe, and made a silent promise to Joshua. I couldn't save you, but I'll save him. Whatever it takes. I should have known that promises like that come with a price. The next morning started normally. Breakfast with Mateo, therapy exercises, playing in the garden while security watched from a distance. But around noon, one of the guards approached me. His expression was tense. Mrs. Russo, we need you and the boy to come inside. Why? What's wrong? There's been a security breach at the perimeter. It's probably nothing, but Mr. Moretti wants you inside until we verify. My heart started racing. A breach. Someone tried to access the property through the service entrance. We've detained them, but protocol requires the house to be locked down. I gathered Mateo quickly, trying not to let my panic show. Come on, sweetheart. We need to go inside for a little while. Why? He sensed my fear, his body going tense. Just being extra safe. It's okay. But it wasn't okay. Because as we walked toward the house, I saw more guards mobilizing. Saw weapons being checked. Saw the way they positioned themselves between us and every possible entry point. This wasn't a drill. This was real danger. Inside the house, the head of security, a man named Carlo, was on the phone. He gestured for me to wait, finishing his call before turning to me. The person at the gate claims to be delivering flowers, he said. But we have no record of a delivery scheduled. And the van isn't from any service Mr. Moretti uses. So send them away, I said. We did. But there's a problem. Carlo's expression darkened. The driver knew your name. Asked specifically if Elena Russo was home. The room tilted slightly. How would they know my name? That's what we're trying to figure out. I've called Mr. Moretti. He's arranging to come back immediately. In the meantime, you and Mateo need to stay in the safe room. The what? The safe room. It's reinforced secure. If something happens, you'll be protected there. This was insane. This was actually happening. Lena's scared, Mateo said, picking up on everything despite my attempts to stay calm. I know, baby. But we're going to be okay. Carlo led us to what I'd thought was just a closet off Adrian's office. But behind the false wall was a steel door with a keypad. He entered a code and it slid open, revealing a small room with reinforced walls, a bathroom, supplies, monitors showing every camera feed on the property. You'll be safe here, Carlo said. I'll be right outside. Don't open this door for anyone except me or Mr. Moretti. Understood. I nodded, pulling Mateo inside. The door closed with a heavy thunk that sounded like a tomb ceiling. Mateo immediately started panicking. The small space, the strange room, the fear radiating from me. It was too much. No, 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 he said, his voice rising. Out. Want out. Mateo, I need you to be brave right now. Can you do that for me? Out. He was screaming now, hitting the walls. I pulled him into my lap and started humming, holding him tight, providing the deep pressure he needed. We're okay. We're safe. Lena's here. Daddy's coming home. We're okay. It took 20 minutes to calm him down. 20 minutes of humming and rocking and fighting my own panic, while my little boy fell apart in my arms. When he finally quieted, exhausted from the meltdown, I held him and watched the monitors. The guards were everywhere, checking perimeters, setting up defensive positions. They were preparing for war on a sunny Tuesday afternoon. My phone rang. Adrian, are you in the safe room? His voice was tight with controlled fear. Yes. We're okay. Matteo had a meltdown, but he's calming down. I'm 10 minutes away. The helicopter's landing soon. Elena, I need you to listen very carefully. I'm listening. The delivery driver was arrested. He's talking. Says he was hired to confirm you were at the villa and report back your location and routine. My blood went cold. Report to who? People who want to hurt me. People who now know the best way to do that is through you and Matteo. Oh God. I'm coming home. And when I get there, we're leaving. All of us. We're going somewhere safe until I can handle this. Adrian, what did you do? What business did you do in Rome that made these people target us? He was quiet for a moment. I refused an alliance. Turned down a deal that would have expanded Moretti operations, but required me to do things I wasn't willing to do anymore. Things that would have made me a worse person than I already am. I thought they'd respect the decision. I was wrong. You chose us over your business? I chose being the man you and Matteo deserve over being the man my father wanted me to be. His voice cracked. And now you're both in danger because of it. We'll figure this out. Elena, these people don't negotiate. They don't forgive. The only way to keep you safe is to eliminate the threat completely. What does that mean? It means I have to become the monster I've been trying not to be. It means I have to do things that will make you look at me differently. Things that will make you wonder if you made a mistake trusting me. Tears were streaming down my face now. I know who you are. I've always known. And I'm still here. You might not be after this. Then let me make that choice when the time comes. Right now, just come home. Come home to us. I'm almost there. I love you, Elena. I need you to know that. Whatever happens next, whatever you see or hear about me, I love you. He'd never said it before. Not directly. I love you too, I whispered. The helicopter landed minutes later. I watched on the monitors as Adrian jumped out before it fully touched down, running toward the house with his bodyguards flanking him. He burst into the safe room, his eyes finding me and Matteo immediately. The relief on his face was palpable. Daddy! Matteo launched himself at Adrian, who caught him and held him tight. I've got you, Adrian said into Matteo's hair. I've got both of you. Then he looked at me and I saw it. The decision he'd already made. The line he was about to cross. We leave tonight, he said. Pack only what you need. We're going to a safe house in the mountains. No one knows about it. You'll be protected there. For how long? Until the threat is eliminated. And how will it be eliminated? His eyes were hard now, all traces of the gentle father and lover gone. This was the Mafia boss. The man who'd built an empire on fear and violence. You don't want to know. But I did know. I'd always known. Adrian Moretti was about to go to war. And I'd given him a reason to win at any cost. Because now he had something to protect that mattered more than power or money or legacy. He had a family. And God help anyone who tried to take that away from him. The safe house was hidden deep in the mountains, 2 hours from Naples. A stone cottage that looked abandoned from the outside but was equipped with everything we needed. Secure communications. Reinforced doors. Escape routes. Prison disguised as safety. We'd been there for 5 days when Adrian finally told me the truth. 3 of the men who ordered the hit on you are dead, he said quietly. We were sitting on the small porch while Matteo slept inside. The mountain air cold enough to see our breath. I should have been horrified. Should have asked how he did it, whether he pulled the trigger himself, whether the blood was literal or just metaphorical. Instead, I just asked, how many more? 2. The leaders. They're harder to reach. And when you reach them? He looked at me, searching for judgment. Then you and Matteo can go home. Home. The villa that no longer felt safe. The life we'd built that was already crumbling. Matteo asked me today when we're going back. I said. I didn't know what to tell him. Tell him soon. He's regressing, Adrian. He won't eat unless I'm sitting next to him. He's back to only speaking in 2-word sentences. Being here, away from his routine, It's destroying the progress we made. Adrian's jaw tightened. I know, but the alternative is him getting hurt. Or worse. There has to be another way. Something that doesn't involve more killing. There isn't. His voice was flat. This is my world, Elena. This is how problems get solved. I warned you. I know you did. Then why do you look at me like I'm breaking your heart? Because he was. Not because of what he was doing, but because I could see what it was doing to him. The man who'd learned to be gentle with his son was having to become something else. Something harder. And I was watching it happen in real time. Inside, Matteo cried out in his sleep. We both stood immediately, moving toward him together. He was having a nightmare, tangled in his sheets, calling for his daddy. I'm here, Adrian said, gathering him close. Daddy's right here. Want to go home, Matteo sobbed. Want my room. Want my cars. Soon, buddy. I promise. But Matteo pulled away, looking at his father with those storm-gray eyes. Daddy lying. The accusation hung in the air. I'm not lying, Adrian said carefully. We will go home. As soon as it's safe. When safe? I don't know. Matteo started crying harder, and nothing Adrian did could calm him. Not holding him, not rocking him, not promises or reassurances. Finally, I took over, humming the lullaby, letting Adrian watch helplessly as his son found comfort in me instead of him. When Matteo finally fell back asleep, Adrian left the room without a word. I found him an hour later, sitting in the dark, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He's right, Adrian said without looking at me. I am lying. I don't know if we can ever go home. I don't know if I can eliminate this threat completely. And even if I do, there will always be another one. That's the life I've built. I sat beside him. Then maybe it's time to build a different life. You think I can just walk away? Leave the family business? I think you can do anything if it means keeping Matteo safe. It's not that simple. It never is. I took his hand. But every day we stay in this world, Matteo suffers. Every day he watches his father become someone harder, someone scarier. He loses a little more of his childhood. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe the threat isn't just the people trying to hurt us. Maybe it's the life itself. Adrian pulled his hand away. You want me to give up everything? Walk away from generations of Moretti legacy? I want you to choose what matters most. I already did. That's why we're here. No. You chose to fight to keep both. But you can't, Adrian. You can't be the Mafia boss and the gentle father. Eventually, one destroys the other. He stood up angry now. You knew what I was when you came into this. You can't ask me to become someone else. I'm not asking you to become someone else. I'm asking you to become yourself. The man you are with Matteo and me when nobody else is watching. That man is weak. That man gets his family killed. That man is the only reason I'm still here. We stared at each other, the truth settling between us like broken glass. I need to finish this, Adrian finally said. Need to eliminate the threat. Then we'll talk about what comes next. It wasn't an agreement, but it wasn't a refusal either. 2 days later, everything changed again. I was making breakfast when Adrian's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his entire face went pale. When? He said into the phone. How did they find it? My stomach dropped. He hung up and looked at me with something close to panic. They found the safe house location. My people intercepted communications. There's a team coming here. Tonight. How is that possible? Someone talked. Someone in my organization gave them the location. A traitor. Inside his own family. We need to leave, he said, already moving. Now. We have maybe 4 hours. Leave to where? I don't know yet. But we can't stay here. I ran to wake Matteo, throwing clothes into a bag with shaking hands. This was it. The moment I'd been dreading. The proof that there was no safe place. No escape from the consequences of loving Adrian Moretti. Matteo was confused, scared, clinging to his toy cars as I rushed him into clothes. Where going? He kept asking. On an adventure, I lied. We're going to see something new. But he knew. Children always know when adults are lying. We were loading into the car when Adrian's phone rang again. He answered, listened, and his expression shifted from panic to something worse. Grief. I understand, he said quietly. Thank you for telling me. He hung up and stood very still. Adrian. I prompted. That was Carlo, my head of security, the man who gave up this location. He swallowed hard. It was my father. The betrayal cut through everything. Antonio sold you out? He doesn't see it as selling me out. He sees it as forcing me to make the right choice. Give you up, send Matteo to a facility, return to being the son he needs to run the family. Or lose everything trying to protect a waitress and a difficult child. The words were like acid. What are you going to do? I asked. Adrian looked at Matteo, then at me, then at the mountains surrounding us. I'm going to choose, he said simply. And in that moment I knew our safe, hidden life was over. The real war was just beginning. We drove for 3 hours, changing cars twice, until we reached a small fishing village on the coast. A place so unremarkable that no one would think to look for us there. Adrian rented a tiny apartment above a fish market. 1 bedroom, peeling paint, the smell of salt and diesel fuel seeping through the walls. It was the opposite of the villa in every way. Matteo hated it immediately. Not home, he kept saying, his hands flapping anxiously. Want to go home. This is home for now, I tried to explain, but he wasn't listening. He refused to eat, refused to sleep in the unfamiliar bed. Spent the first night screaming until his voice went hoarse, and there was nothing I could do to calm him because everything that usually worked, his routine, his room, his familiar things, was gone. By morning I was exhausted and Adrian looked like he'd aged 10 years. I have to go back to Naples, he said. Have to confront my father. End this. You can't leave us here alone. Carlo will stay with you. 2 other guards. They're loyal. I verified it personally. You verified the safe house was secure too. The words hit him like a physical blow. I know, he said quietly. I know I failed you. Failed both of you. But I have to fix this. Have to make it so you can have a normal life again. There is no normal life for us, Adrian. Don't you see that? As long as you're in this world, as long as you're a Moretti, will always be running. Always be targets. Then what do you want me to do? I want you to walk away. Really walk away. Leave the family, the business, all of it. Start over somewhere new. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think it's that simple? You think I can just resign from being a Moretti? I think you can if you want to badly enough. And if I can't? The question hung between us, heavy with implications. Then maybe you need to choose, I said finally. The family business or your actual family. Because you can't keep both. Not anymore. Adrian stood up, grabbed his jacket. I'll be back in 2 days. Don't leave this apartment for any reason. Adrian. He stopped at the door but didn't turn around. If you don't come back, I said, my voice breaking. If something happens to you, what am I supposed to tell Matteo? Tell him his father loved him more than anything. Even more than his own life. Then he was gone. The next 36 hours were the longest of my life. Matteo barely spoke, just rocked in the corner and lined up the few toys we'd managed to bring. Carlo and the guards rotated shifts, their presence a constant reminder that we were in danger. I tried to maintain some semblance of routine, meals at the same times, the lullaby before bed. But everything felt wrong, broken, like we were all just waiting for the other shoe to drop. It dropped on the second night. I was putting Matteo to bed when I heard shouting from the living room, then gunshots. 3 quick pops that made my blood freeze. Matteo under the bed, I whispered urgently. Right now. Don't come out until I tell you. Lena, he whimpered, terrified. I know, baby, but you have to hide. For me. Please. He crawled under the bed, and I pushed a blanket down to hide him, then moved to the bedroom door. More gunshots. Breaking glass. Men's voices, harsh and commanding. Carlo appeared in the doorway, blood spreading across his shirt. "They found us," he gasped. "You need to run. The fire escape. Go now." "What about you?" "I'll buy you time. Go." I grabbed Matteo from under the bed, covering his ears as more gunfire erupted. We ran to the window and I forced it open, the old frame sticking. Behind us I heard footsteps. Heavy boots on the wooden floor. "There!" someone shouted. I didn't think. Just climbed onto the fire escape with Matteo in my arms and started down. 3 floors, the metal shaking with every step. Matteo crying into my shoulder. We hit the alley and I ran. Ran like I'd never run before. My lungs burning, Matteo's weight making my arms scream. But I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because behind us I could hear them coming. I ducked into a narrow passage between buildings, pressing us both against the wall, my hand over Matteo's mouth to muffle his sobs. The footsteps passed. Voices speaking in rapid Italian, coordinating the search. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. When I finally moved, my legs were shaking so badly I could barely walk. I found a phone booth 3 blocks away and called the only number I had memorized. Adrian's emergency line. He answered on the first ring. "Elena." "They found us," I said, my voice breaking. "Carlo's dead. The others too. We barely got out." "Where are you?" "I don't know. Some street. I can see a church. San Pietro, I think the sign says. Stay there. Don't move. I'm coming." "Adrian, how did they find us? How do they keep finding us?" His silence told me everything. "There's another traitor," I said. "Isn't there? Someone else in your organization is feeding them information." "I don't know. But I'm going to find out." His voice was cold now. "Deadly. And when I do, they'll wish I just killed them." He arrived 20 minutes later in a car I didn't recognize, alone. He gathered us both into the back seat and drove without speaking, his jaw tight, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Matteo had gone silent. Not calm. Silent. The kind of silence that comes from a system that's shut down completely from overload. "He needs a doctor," I said. "He's in shock." "I know a place. Somewhere safe." "You said the safe house was safe. You said the apartment was safe. Everywhere we go, they find us. This is different." "How?" "Because I'm not telling anyone where we're going. Not my father. Not my associates. Not even Carlo." He glanced in the rearview mirror. "I'm trusting no one but myself." We drove for hours, finally stopping at a small monastery in the hills. Adrian spoke to the priest in rapid Italian, and we were led to a simple room with 2 beds and a cross on the wall. "You'll be safe here," the priest said in accented English. "The church doesn't involve itself in worldly affairs. No one will look for you in the house of God." After he left, I finally broke down. All the fear, all the exhaustion, all the terror of watching Matteo fall apart piece by piece, it all came crashing down at once. "I can't do this anymore," I sobbed. "I can't keep running. Can't keep watching him suffer. Can't keep wondering which of your people is going to get us killed next." Adrian knelt in front of me, taking my face in his hands. I know, and I'm sorry. This is all my fault." "Then fix it. Whatever it takes, fix it." "I'm trying." "No." I pulled away from him. "You're trying to win a war while keeping your empire intact. That's not the same as fixing it. What do you want me to do, Elena? Walk away from everything? Disappear?" "Yes. That's exactly what I want you to do. I want you to choose us. Really choose us. Not try to have both. Just choose. And if I choose you, if I walk away from the Morettis, they'll hunt us forever. My father won't stop. The families we've wronged won't forgive. We'll be running for the rest of our lives. Then we run. But at least we'll be alive." Adrian looked at Matteo, who was curled on one of the beds, clutching his toy car, staring at nothing. "He deserves better than this," Adrian said quietly. "He deserves a father who's alive and present more than he deserves a father who's powerful and absent. You don't understand what you're asking me to give up." "I understand perfectly. I'm asking you to give up money and power and respect. I'm asking you to become nobody instead of somebody. I moved closer to him. What I don't understand is why that's even a choice. Why is that empire worth more than your son's happiness? It's not. Then prove it. We stared at each other, the weight of the decision crushing. If I do this, Adrian said slowly, if I really walk away, there's no going back. I'll have to disappear completely. New identities, new country, no contact with anyone from our old lives. You and Matteo will lose everything too. We've already lost everything that matters. Everything except each other. He closed his eyes and I watched him make the choice. Watched him let go of the man he'd been raised to be and become the man Matteo needed him to be. Okay, he said finally. Okay. We disappear. All of us. We start over. I should have felt relief. Should have felt hope. Instead I felt dread. Because I'd learned by now that every time we thought we'd found a solution, the universe had other plans. And I was right. The next morning I woke to find Adrian gone and a note on the pillow. I'm fixing this. The only way I know how. Keep Matteo safe. I love you both more than my own life. If I don't come back, there's money in the account I gave you. Take him somewhere beautiful. Give him the life I couldn't. Adrian. My hands shook as I read it again. And again. He'd lied to me. Told me he'd walk away and instead, he'd gone back to finish the war. And I had no idea if I'd ever see him alive again. 3 days passed with no word from Adrian. Matteo stopped talking completely. Stopped eating. Just sat on the monastery bed, rocking back and forth, his toy car clutched in one hand. I tried everything. The lullaby, the pressure hugs, the gentle reassurances. Nothing worked. He disappeared inside himself and I couldn't reach him. On the 4th day, the priest knocked on our door. There's news from Naples, he said quietly. You should see this. He led me to his office and turned on a small television. The news was showing footage of a building on fire. The Moretti family headquarters. Authorities say the explosion killed at least 12 people, the reporter said. Among the dead, Antonio Moretti, the patriarch of the notorious crime family. His son, Adrian Moretti, is missing and presumed dead. The room spun. No, I whispered. No, that's not possible. But the screen showed body bags being carried out. Showed Adrian's car, burned beyond recognition, in the parking structure. I'm very sorry, the priest said. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. This wasn't real. This couldn't be happening. I walked back to our room in a daze. Matteo looked up at me, those gray eyes so much like his father's, and asked his first question in days. Where Daddy? I opened my mouth but no words came out. How do you tell a child that his father is dead? How do you explain that the man who promised to protect us had gone off to war and lost? Daddy's not coming back, I finally managed. Matteo's face crumpled. No. Daddy comes back. Daddy always comes back. Not this time, baby. I'm so sorry. He started screaming. Not crying, screaming. A sound of pure anguish that seemed to come from his soul. I held him while he fell apart, both of us drowning in grief. The next week was a blur. The priest helped me access the account Adrian had mentioned. There was money more than I could spend in a lifetime. Blood money. Money that represented everything Adrian had been and done. I should have refused it. Should have thrown it back and lived in poverty on principle. But I had Matteo to think about. Matteo who needed therapy and care and stability. So I took the money and hated myself for it. We stayed at the monastery for 2 more weeks while I figured out what to do next. Matteo barely responded to anything. Wouldn't let me out of his sight. Woke up screaming every night from nightmares. He'd lost his mother to cancer. Now he'd lost his father to violence. And I'd lost everything twice. One evening I was sitting outside watching the sunset when a car pulled up to the monastery. A black sedan with tinted windows. My heart stopped. They'd found us. After everything, they'd found us. The door opened and a man stepped out. Tall gray hair, expensive suit. Antonio's second in command. A man named Salvatore. Mrs. Russo, he said politely, may I speak with you? Stay away from us. I mean you no harm. I have information. About Adrian. That stopped me. Adrian's dead. That's what we wanted everyone to believe, including the people who've been hunting you. The world tilted. What are you saying? Adrian orchestrated the explosion, made it look like he and his father both died. In reality, only Antonio and his loyalists were in the building. Adrian escaped. Where is he? In custody. Federal custody. He made a deal. Testified against the families in exchange for protection. He gave them everything. Names, operations, bank accounts. The entire network is collapsing. I couldn't process this. Why would he do that? For you. For his son. He knew the only way to truly end the threat was to destroy the entire system from within. But there's a cost. Salvatore's expression was grim. He's going to prison. 20 years minimum, even with the deal. I want to see him. That's not possible. He's in a secure facility. No visitors, no contact. But he asked me to give you this. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter in Adrian's handwriting and 2 passports. One for me, one for Matteo. New names, new identities. Elena, the letter began. By the time you read this, you'll know I'm alive. You'll also know I'm never coming home. I'm sorry I lied. Sorry I promised to walk away and didn't. But this was the only way. The only way to make sure no one ever hurts you or Matteo again. The families are finished. Their leadership is dead or arrested. You're free now. Really free. Take Matteo somewhere safe. Somewhere beautiful. Raise him to be better than I ever was. Tell him his father loved him. Tell him I died a hero if it helps him sleep at night. But most importantly, tell him he's perfect exactly as he is. You taught me that. You taught me so many things. I love you. I'm sorry. Adrian. I read it 3 times before the tears came. He'd sacrificed everything. His freedom, his life, his chance to watch Matteo grow up. All to give us safety. There's one more thing, Salvatore said. Adrian made arrangements. A house in Canada already purchased under your new names. Money in offshore accounts. Everything you need to start over. He planned it all. What happens to him now? He serves his time. He survives prison. Men like Adrian have many enemies, and prison is full of people who want revenge. Can I write to him? No. All contact is forbidden. It's part of the agreement. You have to let him go completely. After Salvatore left, I sat with the letter for hours. Adrian had done what I asked. Walked away from his empire, chosen us over everything. But the cost was higher than either of us imagined. That night, I showed Matteo a photo of his father that I'd hidden in my wallet. Daddy had to go away, I said carefully, to keep us safe. But he loves you so much. He wanted you to know that. Daddy's gone forever? Yes, baby. I'm sorry. Matteo stared at the photo, then at me. Just like Mommy? Yes. Like Mommy. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, but I still have Lena. My heart broke and healed at the same time. Yes. You still have me. Always. Promise. I promise. I'm never leaving you. Never. He tucked himself against me, and I held him while he cried himself to sleep. We'd lost everything. Our home, our life, Adrian. But we still had each other. And somehow that would have to be enough. We moved to Vancouver 3 months later. A quiet neighborhood with tree-lined streets and a good school nearby. Our new names were simple. Emma and Michael Carter. Mother and son. No complicated history. I enrolled Matteo in a special program for children with autism. Found him a therapist who specialized in trauma. Slowly, painfully, he started to come back to us. But he never stopped asking about his father. Where's Daddy now? He'd ask at bedtime. Far away. But he's thinking about you. Always thinking about you. Will he come back? No, sweetheart. He can't. It destroyed me every time. Keeping Adrian's sacrifice a secret. Letting Matteo believe his father had simply abandoned us. But what was the alternative? Tell an 8-year-old that his father was in prison? That he'd killed people, destroyed lives, traded his freedom for ours? Some truths are too heavy for children to carry. I got a job at a bookstore. Nothing fancy, but honest work that let me be home when Matteo got out of school. We built routines. Park on Tuesdays. Pizza on Fridays. The same lullaby every night. Life became manageable. Not happy, not yet, but survivable. Then, 6 months after we arrived, I met David. He came into the bookstore looking for a gift for his niece. Kind eyes, easy smile, the kind of man who seemed incapable of violence. He asked me for recommendations and we talked for an hour about children's books. He came back the next week. And the week after that. I'm running out of nieces, he joked. But I'd still like to keep talking to you. I'm not really looking for anything right now, I said carefully. Just coffee then. As friends. I knew I should say no. Knew I was still in love with a man I'd never see again. But loneliness does strange things to people. Okay. Coffee. David was patient. He didn't push, didn't demand explanations for why I flinched at loud noises or why I never talked about Matteo's father. He just showed up, consistently, with that easy kindness that felt like sunlight after years in the dark. He met Matteo after a month. They got along well. David didn't expect Matteo to be anything other than who he was. Didn't try to fix him or change him. After 3 months, David asked me to dinner. A real date, not just coffee. I don't know if I'm ready for this, I admitted. Then we'll go slow. As slow as you need. That night, after Matteo was asleep, I pulled out the letter Adrian had written. Read it again for the 100th time. Take Matteo somewhere safe. Somewhere beautiful. Raise him to be better than I ever was. Was I allowed to move on? To find happiness with someone else while Adrian sat in a cell, paying for crimes committed to protect us? The guilt was crushing. But so was the loneliness. I went to dinner with David. And it was nice. Easy. Normal in a way my life had never been normal. He kissed me goodnight and I let him. But when I closed my eyes, I saw Adrian's face. The choice was impossible. Stay loyal to a man I'd never see again, or build a new life with someone who was actually here. Over the next few months, David became part of our routine. He'd come for dinners, take Matteo to the park, be present in all the ways Adrian couldn't be. Matteo started calling him David. Just David, not Dad. Like he was reserving that word for someone else. Do you like David? I asked him one night. He's nice, Matteo said carefully. But he's not Daddy. No one will ever be Daddy. Good. He hugged his toy car closer. I don't want a new daddy. Just David. It was the permission I didn't know I was waiting for. David proposed 6 months later. Nothing dramatic, just a quiet question over dinner. I love you, he said. I love Matteo. I know I'm not his father and I'm not trying to be. But I'd like to be part of your family. If you'll have me. The old me would have said yes immediately. Would have grabbed this chance at normal happiness with both hands. But I wasn't that person anymore. I need to tell you something first, I said. The truth about who we are. I told him everything. About Joshua. About Adrian. About the violence and the running and the sacrifice. About the fact that Emma Carter wasn't my real name and Michael wasn't really Matteo. David listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. That's a lot, he finally said. I know. And if you want to walk away, I understand. Do you still love him? Adrian. The question I'd been avoiding. Part of me will always love him. He gave us safety at the cost of his own freedom. That's not something you forget. But he's gone. And I'm here. And so are you. And maybe that's enough. David reached across the table and took my hand. I'm not asking you to forget him. I'm just asking you to let me help you build something new. What if his past catches up with us? Then we'll deal with it together. It was exactly what I needed to hear. But that night, alone in my room, I cried for Adrian. For the life we'd almost had. For the man who'd loved us enough to destroy himself. And then I made my choice. I was going to say yes to David. going to build a new life. Not because I didn't love Adrian anymore, but because staying frozen in grief wasn't fair to Matteo. Or to me. Adrian had given us freedom. The least I could do was use it. The next morning I called David with my answer. But before I could speak, he said, "Turn on the news. Channel 7. Now." I grabbed the remote, my heart already racing. The headline made my blood freeze. Prison transfer ambush leaves 3 dead. Notorious mob informant Adrian Moretti escapes. And suddenly everything changed again. Adrian showed up at our door 3 days later. I looked through the peephole and my heart stopped. Thinner, a scar through his eyebrow, but unmistakably him. Behind me, Matteo's cereal bowl crashed to the floor. "Daddy!" I opened the door and Matteo ran, launching himself at Adrian. They collapsed together, both sobbing. "You came back," Matteo cried. "I'm so sorry I left." I pulled them both inside, checking the street. "How did you find us?" "I've always known where you were. Had someone watching to make sure you were safe." He finally looked at me over Matteo's head. The prison deal was a setup. The federal agents were bought by the families. They tried to kill me during transport. I fought back. "So you're wanted for murder now. 3 dead agents. I have maybe 48 hours before they find me here." He touched Matteo's face gently. "I came to warn you. And to say goodbye." "No." Matteo's voice was fierce. "You stay." "I can't, buddy. Bad people will follow me. Then we all run." Adrian looked at me, the question in his eyes. "There's someone else," I said quietly. "David. He wants to marry me." The words hung between us. "What do you want?" Adrian asked. "I want to not have to choose. I want Matteo to have a father who's not running. I want a normal life. I can't give you that." There was a knock. "Elena?" "It's David." Adrian's hand moved to his gun. "I should go." "Hide." "The bedroom." He disappeared and I opened the door. David looked worried. "Are you okay?" "The news about Matteo's father." "I'm fine." He studied my face. "You're lying." "He's here, isn't he?" Before I could answer, Adrian stepped out. "She believes it because it's true," Adrian said calmly. David moved in front of me. "Get away from them. I'm here to warn them. The families I testified against will come after them if they think it'll hurt me." "So what's your plan?" I asked. "Fake my death. For real this time. A body, dental records, everything. After tomorrow, Adrian Moretti is erased from the world." He looked at me. "You'll be safe. You can marry David. Give Matteo the life I can't." Matteo appeared. "I don't want David. I want my daddy." Adrian picked him up. "Sometimes we don't get what we want. Sometimes we have to settle for what's safe. I need you to be brave. To let me go. But I want to be like you." "No, you don't." He kissed his forehead. "You be like Lena. She's the hero, not me." He set Matteo down and turned to me. "I'm sorry I couldn't be the man you deserved. You gave me Matteo. You gave me a reason to live again. It's not enough." He moved to the door and I stopped him. "If the world was different, if we'd met under normal circumstances, would it have worked?" Adrian looked at me with devastating longing. "In every universe where circumstances are different, I choose you. Every single one." Then he walked out. David held me as I sobbed. Matteo stood frozen, watching the door. 2 days later, the news reported Adrian Moretti's body found in a warehouse fire. Positive ID. Case closed. And somewhere in the world, a man who used to be Adrian Moretti started a new life. Alone. I didn't marry David. I couldn't. Not when every time he touched me I thought of someone else. Not when Matteo still set a place at the table for a ghost. David understood. He was kind about it the way he was kind about everything. "You're still in love with him," he said when I gave him back the ring he'd never actually given me. "Part of me will always be. That's not fair to any of us." "I know. I'm sorry." He left quietly and I didn't blame him. Who wants to compete with a dead man? But Adrian wasn't dead. I knew it in my bones. The body they found was too convenient, the timing too perfect. He was out there somewhere, living under a new name, being someone else. And we were here. Safe. Free. Exactly what he'd wanted. Mateo started talking again after 6 months. Real sentences, not just 2 words. His therapist said it was progress, that trauma takes time to heal. Do you think Daddy's happy? He asked me one night. I think he's peaceful. Knowing you're safe. I miss him. Me too, baby. Every day. We built a life in Vancouver. I went back to school, got my teaching degree. Started working with children like Mateo, kids who experience the world differently. Turns out losing Joshua and raising Mateo had taught me things textbooks never could. Mateo thrived. He was 12 now, still lining up his toy cars but also making friends, talking about video games, being a regular kid in most ways that mattered. He never forgot his father. Kept that red toy car Adrian had given him on his nightstand. Sometimes I'd catch him talking to it like Adrian could hear. Maybe he could. Who knows how these things work? 3 years after Adrian disappeared, I took Mateo to Italy for summer vacation. He'd been asking to see where his father grew up, and I thought maybe it would give him closure. We visited Naples, staying far from the old Moretti neighborhoods. Just tourists, nobody special. On our last day, we went to a small church in the hills. The same monastery where we'd hidden all those years ago. The priest who'd helped us was still there, older now but kind. I remember you, he said. And the boy. You're both well. We are. Thank you for everything you did for us. I did very little. It was faith that saved you. As we were leaving, Mateo stopped at the donation box. He pulled out the red toy car, the one he'd carried for years, and placed it gently inside. What are you doing? I asked. Leaving it for Daddy. So he knows we're okay. My throat tightened. Baby, your dad's not coming back here. I know. But maybe someone else who's scared and running will find it. And it'll help them like it helped me. I pulled him close. This beautiful, empathetic boy who'd survived more than any child should have to. Your father would be so proud of you. I'm proud of him too. He saved us. We walked back to our hotel and I felt lighter somehow. Like we'd finally laid something heavy down. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The car was a good touch. He's growing up well. You've done an amazing job. AM. My hand shook as I read it again. And again. He was watching. Still watching after all these years. I typed back quickly. Are you safe? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. As safe as men like me can be. Are you happy? Was I? Not in the way I'd been with Adrian. But content. Purposeful. At peace. Getting there. You. I have a small restaurant now. By the sea. It's quiet. Simple. Everything I never knew I wanted. Tears blurred my vision. I'm glad. Does he remember me? Every day. He's so much like you. Smart, protective, sees the world in his own way. That's all you, not me. It's both of us. A long pause. Then, I see you sometimes. Not close. Just glimpses. You at the school. Him at the park. I know I shouldn't, but I can't help it. I know. I feel you there. I'm sorry for everything. Don't be. You gave us life. Real life. You gave me something to be better for. Even if I failed. You didn't fail. You're still his hero. Another long pause. I have to go now. This number will be disconnected after this conversation. But know that I'm out there. Watching over you both from a distance. Always. Will I ever see you again? In another life, maybe. When the world is kinder and second chances are real. I love you, Elena. I love him. That's the only truth that matters. We love you too. The 3 dots disappeared. The number went dead. And that was it. The last contact. The final goodbye. But somehow it was enough. I walked to Mateo's room and watched him sleep, his face peaceful, one hand tucked under his pillow where he used to keep that red car. We'd survived. Against impossible odds, against violence and loss and a world that tried to break us, we'd survived. Joshua had taught me how to be a mother. Adrian had taught me how to be brave. And Mateo had taught me how to live again. That was more than most people got in a lifetime. I pulled out my phone one last time and opened my photos. There, hidden in a locked folder, were the only pictures I had of Adrian. At the restaurant with Mateo smiling. "Thank you," I whispered to the ghost on the screen. "For everything." Then I closed the app and went to bed. Tomorrow Mateo and I were flying home. Back to our quiet life in Vancouver. Back to normal. And somewhere on a coast I'd never visit, a man who used to be Adrian Moretti was cooking pasta in a small restaurant by the sea. Living the peaceful life he'd never thought he deserved. The life his love for us had finally earned him. And maybe, just maybe, that was the happy ending we all needed. Not together. Not the way fairy tales promise. But alive. Safe. Free. And still connected by something stronger than distance or danger or time. Love. The kind that saves you even when it has to let you go. So that's my story. The story of how a broken waitress and a mafia boss's autistic son found each other in the darkest moment. How we built a family from grief and danger. How love doesn't always look the way you expect it to. If you're out there listening, if you've stayed with me through all of this, thank you. Thank you for hearing our story. For understanding that sometimes the happy ending is just surviving. Just being okay. Drop a comment and tell me what you thought. Tell me if you believe in second chances. Tell me if you think love is enough even when it's not together. And if you're going through something hard right now, if you're grieving or running or just trying to make it through another day, I want you to know something. You're stronger than you think. Braver than you know. And somewhere out there, someone is proud of you for still fighting. I know I am. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, broken things can still be beautiful. Sometimes they're the most beautiful of all.